This is going to feel like a lot of talking, so if you were already in class and heard this, I would not watch this video unless you need further clarification. If you are at home right now, definitely watch this video. So today I'm going to be going over the scoring rubric for the rhetorical analysis essay. So we need to know how we can score these points before we go in and actually start writing essays. So I just want you to know exactly what the chief readers are going to be looking for, how you can earn these points, and just being aware of what a high scoring essay looks like versus a low scoring. So we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So there's 6 points. You can get 0 points to 6 points, basically. Your goal is to at least get probably a 3 or a 4, but we're going to talk about all of that right now. So the first things first is the thesis. So let's go ahead and just take a look here for what 0 points looks at. This is the easiest point that you can get on the rhetorical analysis essay. None of you should be scoring a 0 out of 6. You should be getting at least the thesis point. So you don't get any points if there's no defensible thesis. The intended thesis only restates the prompt. The intended thesis provides a summary of the issue with no apparent claim. And there is a thesis, but it does not respond to the prompt. So I think we all know what a thesis is. We've been practicing it with the SOAPs, which should be helping you, because if you follow that soapstone thesis format, you are providing commentary. You are providing a claim. You're not just summarizing it, because you're stating the purpose of the passage that you read. So you should not have any issues with this. I don't want you to overthink it as long as you are using that soapstone template. So just double check though whenever you are, and make sure that you're not just restating the prompt, that you do have the rhetorical choices in your thesis. Remember, we talked about this a couple weeks ago whenever I was giving you points for the Blackfish thesis. Some of you guys did not put specific rhetorical choices in there. That's important. And also just making sure that it's not just describing what the passage is about, that you're actually making the claim. What is the purpose? You do get a point if you have a thesis that analyzes the writer's rhetorical choices. So basically, as long as that you have that soapstone template and you follow it, you'll be fine. So list them. Even if it is simple, it's okay, because you get to those points. So list those 2 to 3 rhetorical choices. Is it their diction? Is it their tone? Do they use anaphora, hypophora? Do they use juxtaposition? You are already so familiar with diction and tone that you should be able to identify them right off the bat, even if you cannot come up with any other rhetorical choices. This is one way that you can get that 1 point. So again, it articulates a defensible thesis about the rhetorical choices the writer makes. Okay, so hopefully you understand now the point where you get the thesis point. But now we're going to go into this row right here, which is the majority of the points. So really quickly, I would like you to just bracket these. So bracket these two together, just put a line 0 to 1, leave this one alone, and then bracket 3 to 4. So we are going to begin by focusing on these right here. So 0 to 1 points. So I want you to write inadequate above this bracket, and then also write 50 to 300 words. Above the 2 points, I want you to write adequate and write 250 to 400 words. And then the 3 to 4 points, I want you to write effective and write 400 to 800 words. You can pause this video whenever you want. So that's basically the breakdown here, is if you get 0 to 1 points here, you did not do enough. You only wrote 50 to 300 words, and that's just simply not enough. And you just were not able to effectively or even adequately defend your rhetorical choices that you made in your thesis. 2 points, that's adequate. So if you wrote between 250 and 400 words and you did a decent job explaining those rhetorical choices, you will get these 2 points. But what we are really aiming for here is the 3 to 4 point range, which is effective. And you have to write 400 to 800 words in order to get an effective score of 3 to 4 points. So let's break that down even further now. So in the inadequate thing, it just simply restates the thesis. It repeats the information that has already been given, and it offers really only information irrelevant to the prompt. So you're basically just summarizing here, which we want to avoid. We want to be analyzing those rhetorical choices. So this is basically, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're just writing to write. These responses are typically incoherent. They don't have any kind of rhyme or reason to them. And it's just usually an opinion with no textual references or references that are irrelevant. So basically, you go in there, you do not reference the prompt at all. You just start talking about how, yeah, I think that they did a good job. They were able to persuade me, but you give them no evidence on how they persuaded you or how they fulfilled those rhetorical choices. Now, the 1 point, still not very good, but the evidence, it's just mainly general. You don't actually pull specific evidence out. But it's also combined with that the commentary is just a summarization of the evidence, and it does not explain how the evidence supports the student's argument. So basically, you're not going into why the diction mattered. How did the diction affect the author's rhetorical choices? Were they able to persuade the reader using those rhetorical choices? And these tend to focus on, again, summary and description of the passage. And there's a mention of those rhetorical choices, but there's no explanation. So remember how I said that it's better to know what those rhetorical choices do and not know the specific name and be able to explain them thoroughly than to just like name drop, oh, the author uses diction here. And then that's the end of your commentary. That's only going to get you like 1 point. And that's not what we're aiming for. So to add some notes to these sides here, usually if you score in this bracket right here, you have a limited point of view. You're very repetitive. It's just poorly crafted, and you're just obviously confused. So that's not good. Also, let's take a look again at those 50 to 300 words. So if you're only writing that much, you aren't getting anything across. So a quote that I have written down on my paper is, you can be long and wrong, but never short and great. So basically what that means is you can write like 800 words and maybe get a little bit more out of it. You might be able to score those 2 points if you write that much. But you're never going to be able to get above a 0 or a 1 point on this category if you're only writing 50 to 300 words. You need to write more than that. Also, long quotes are for losers. So if you are reading this and everything, and you're like, oh, that's a great quote, it's going to take up 50 words, I'm going to put it in there. Your chief reader is going to definitely pick up on that, and they're not going to like it very much. So make sure that you are picking evidence that is relevant and short. If you have to paraphrase it, do it. So let's go ahead and move on then to the 2 points here. So this is considered to be adequate, so 250 to 400 words. So your evidence here provides some specific relevant evidence, and your commentary explains how some of the evidence relates to the student's argument, but no line of reasoning is established or the line of reasoning is faulty. So basically, this is just a safe way of writing this paper. Basically, you're just writing in a very limited way, but you do have a better understanding than over in this bracket here. So typically, it's just a lot of generalities. So it's not really super specific. You're just kind of throwing things out there. You might be saying like a rhetorical choice, but you're not actually diving into the rhetorical choice in the passage. You're just kind of generally summarizing that rhetorical choice. It might be a little simplistic, inaccurate, or repetitive. So make sure that you are not repeating yourself over and over again. You might make just one point really well, but then the rest don't really come together. And then lastly, they do not explain the connections or progression through the student's claims. So this is adequate. So it's okay if you get 2 points here, but we are really striving to be effective. That's why we are trying to broaden our sentence patterns, broaden our vocabulary, so that way we don't come off as simplistic. That's why we are trying to practice how do these rhetorical choices flow together. Diction and tone kind of go hand in hand. Therefore, you might want to use those two right back to back. That's just an example. Okay, so then finally we're into the 3 to 4 range, which is effective. So this is going to be 400 to 800 words. You have to write a lot here, but it's going to pay off. So here in the 3 and the 4. So let's go over the 3 first. So this provides specific evidence to support all claims in a line of reasoning. Your commentary explains how some of the evidence supports a line of reasoning and explains how at least one rhetorical choice in the passage contributes to the writer's argument, purpose, or message. So usually here, you're offering evidence to support your claims. You want to focus on the importance of these specific words and details from the passage to build on that argument. So you are taking those specific things, you are building on it. Your commentary is enforcing the evidence. And then lastly, the commentary may fail to integrate some evidence or fail to support a key claim. So here you might be off the mark a little bit, but you still are in that effective range, which is what we are aiming for. The 4 points, it's basically you had it right on the money here. You focus on the importance of the specific words and details from the passage to build an argument, and you explain how the writer's use of rhetorical choices contributes to the student's interpretation of the passage. So you just understand it completely. You're able to explain it completely. So we are aiming to be in here. Your first timed writing that we're going to practice and stuff, I do not expect anyone to be in the 3 to 4 point range. I'm expecting a lot on this end, which is okay because this is why we are practicing it. So the last thing that we're going to go over here, the last point that you can earn is sophistication. So the only way that you can earn this point is basically if you get a 3 or a 4 in the commentary and evidence. If you get a 0 or to 2 points, you're not earning this point down here. Basically, okay, so we're going to go over this over here. So it does not meet the criteria for 1 point. The responses that don't earn this point attempt to contextualize the text, but such attempts consist of they're just general, basically. You're not doing a great job of being specific. You only hint or suggest other arguments. You oversimplify, and you use complicated or complex sentences or language that's ineffective, and it doesn't enhance it. So basically here, you use a passive voice, you lack complexity, there's no sentence variety. So here's an example of passive versus active voice. So passive voice is the candy was eaten by me, whereas active voice is I ate the candy. Some people do this.
This is a reminder for anyone who signed up for the flu shot should please report to the commissary at this time. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So yeah, it's basically making sure that your subject is first and that you're just getting to the point. You're not using extra words to fill in. Now, if you do earn this point, it's basically your essay was extremely impressive. It was well crafted. The writer is an intellectual tour guide, basically, and they use a mature style, and it really pops. So basically, you do this by explaining a purpose or function of the passage's complexities or tensions, and you employ a style that is consistently vivid and persuasive throughout the student's responses. So you do this by just being an excellent writer, making sure that you are using different sentence patterns, that you have a very coherent line of thought. This is a difficult point to get, but we're going to continue to practice it just in case. So that's basically it. If you have any other questions about this, we're going to apply this in our next activity. So make sure that you do ask if you have any questions.